When Michael performed his Olympic weight lifting, were you able to see the layout of the song in the scroll? Unlike all the other columns, it's in two columns, two parallel columns, like pillars holding up the Torah or holding up the Jewish people. And in fact, that's the image of the song, that God is a tzur, a rock, a foundation that holds the Jewish people. And if we lose our sense of that, we lose our sense of peoplehood, our sense of who we are. I read a really interesting commentary about the song, which pointed out something that I'd never thought about before. It's by a man named Arnold Eisen, who was the chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, a great scholar. And he said that the song provides us with images which are not real. It is a poem after all. And a poem is constructed in the imagination, not in the rational mind. Poems speak to our hearts, not our intelligence. But what he was saying was that the imagery of the poem is of another world, an imaginary world, not a world that anyone has ever lived in. And he goes on to say that, in fact, this is the entire book of Deuteronomy. It's an imaginary book that creates an imaginary world. And it does it through words, which is really interesting because the name of the book in Hebrew, Devarim, means simply words. So it uses words to construct images which become teleological. That is, they define the course of our actions, both as individuals and as a people. They give us direction. They say, this is what the world could be like if you work hard to make it look that way. The world you live in doesn't look like this. It takes effort to make it look like this. So our God effectively gives us ideas or pictures, mental imagery, that inspire us to create a different kind of world than the world we actually live in. And if you think about that, that's absolutely right. Because what sets human beings apart from, as far as we know, anything else that's sentient in this world is our ability to imagine what's not there. We don't know that animals have this ability at all. We know that animals can play games, that animals can communicate with one another, can express warnings to one another, but we don't know that they can tell one another stories. We don't know that they can lie or fib to one another. Wow, that owner over there, he has great bones. You really want to go to him. And then the dog shows up and there's nothing there at all. I don't think that actually happens. So this is a great insight that the book of Deuteronomy is presenting us with a world which is, to use a different kind of phrase, not yet. A world that is not yet. And in fact, this is what the entirety of Jewish life is. It's a life of not yet. So we come together to pray on Shabbat, something that no one else in the world does in the way that we do it, with this idea that we are creating something from our imaginations. And this inspires us to go back into the world and look for things that aren't there, but which can be there because we believe that they can be there. This is the very essence of faith. Faith is a belief that something which isn't there might be there if we seek it and work hard enough to make it happen. It's also the basis of hope. And as Rabbi Jonathan Sacks said often, hope is the essence of being Jewish. Without hope, there is no Judaism. But he's basically saying the same thing that Arnold Eisen did. He's saying we create images of what's possible in our minds, and then we try to make them a reality in the world. If it doesn't work, if we don't succeed the first time or the second or the third, that's all right, because we're trying to do something totally new that's never been there before. We're trying to create a world that has never been there before. Ultimately, a world of peace, a world of justice, a world of fairness and righteousness for all. The great Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig was once, I don't know if this is an apocryphal story or if it actually happened, but he was once asked by someone, do you lay tefillin? Rosenzweig we can describe as the first non-denominational Jew. He didn't identify with the progressive movement. He certainly didn't identify with Orthodoxy. He was his own thing, a DIY Jew. And so somebody said, do you lay tefillin? His answer, profound, was, not yet. Because this was a possibility for him, but it was a possibility that he hadn't yet put into practice. So it wasn't a reality in his world, but it could be a reality if he was so taken to do it. If he wanted it enough and he could find enough meaning in it for himself, then he would do it. Of course, Franz Rosenzweig very sadly died of Lou Gehrig's disease, like motor neuron disease, at quite a young age, so there was no way he could have laid tefillin in any case. But it's a great story about him. And it's a great story for us. It's not progressive, it's not orthodox, it's not conservative or reconstructing Judaism. It's just what it is. Judaism gives us a full panoply, a full display of imaginations, of imaginary things, which we can make real by committing ourselves to them. We do this with the Shabbat service. We've just done it over the High Holy Days. We've taken ordinary activities, coming together, sitting in chairs, reciting words, singing music, and we've turned them into something quite extraordinary. On Rosh Hashanah we did that. On Yom Kippur we will do that again. We do it because it's not yet, and then it becomes a reality. And that's really what Shabbat Shuvah is about. It's to remind us that the ultimate control for returning to the path, for not stumbling along the way, is in our hands. It's not yet, but we can make it yet. We can make it a reality. That's what this Shabbat is for. That's what these 10 days of repentance are for. That's what this whole High Holy Day period is for. To help us create the kind of world that we, each of us, wants to live in. Shabbat Shalom.